even if he didn't get shot here, even if he got that 1.2 million, his life would have ended up in this way. Eventually, he would have spent all that money within a year. He would be right where his back is. He would have used all that money, probably just wasted it on vacations with Julia, and then put it all into gambling and lose it all and get probably even deeper in a hole.
Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. We are very excited to talk about two of the most exciting young filmmakers coming out of New York City the past decade, the Safdie brothers, with their great early films, Good Time and Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems. I asked Anthony we were going to watch it the other night. I'm like, how do you spell Uncut Gems?
They're really great filmmakers. They actually have a lot of short films on the Criterion channel if you want to check them out. Benny and Josh are two super talented guys. Benny has become a very good actor. He's been in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. He was in the Obi-Wan show. He's in Christopher Nolan's upcoming Oppenheimer. So he's becoming a very successful actor. And his performance in Good Time is a real testament to why that's happening for him. But I love them. They're great filmmakers. They have a really unique style. They stay out of the studio system and they make their own stories, which is very unique to New York and certain neighborhoods and cultures of New York City, which I really adore.
I really like Good Time and Uncut Gems. Obviously, Uncut Gems was a lot more popular, a lot more
It made 100 mil.
40 million.
Oh, 40 mil.
40 million. It was eight. It was one of eight. Get off your jump to conclusions.
I misread that.
It made $40 million on, I think, $19 million budget, and then Good Time only made $4 million on about a $5 million budget. But that was just it wasn't a commercial success, Good Time, but it was a critical success, and you could argue,
on Netflix, I think it did well.
Yeah, so it's just a really well-liked movie critically and from audiences alike, and that got them the funding to be able to make Uncut Gems, which they've been trying to make for about a decade. And just a quick synopsis on both these films. So Good Time follows Connie Nikas, played by Robert Pattinson, a small-time criminal who gets his mentally handicapped brother arrested after his failed bank robbery. Connie then embarks on a twisted odyssey through New York City's underworld to get his brother Nick out of jail, and Nick is played by Ben Safdie. And then Uncut Gems follows New York City jeweler and gambling addict Howard Ratner on his roller coaster life, trying to pay off his many debts to various loan sharks, most significantly his brother-in-law. Always looking for the next big bet, Howard thinks he finally hit it big when he discovers a rare uncut opal from Ethiopia with a very interested high-profile buyer. But the closer Howard gets to finally winning big, the more he is forced to realize he can't keep running from the consequences of his actions. Good Time came out in 2017. It was written by Ronald Bronstein and Josh Safdie, directed by Josh Safdie and Ben Safdie. IMDb, it is at a 7.3 with 126,000 reviews. Rotten Tomatoes, Good Time is 92% critic score, 82% audience score. And then Uncut Gems came out in 2019. IMDb, it's at a 7.4. Rotten Tomatoes, it is a 91% critic score. Audience score is 52% rotten for Uncut Gems, and is one of A24's highest grossing films with that $40 million box office.
I think I can tell you why the audiences don't really like Uncut Gems.
Why?
The film is very unique in its approach to the structure of the plot, and especially the first act of the film. It is extremely chaotic, and the sound design is all over the place, and there's really no sense of a real plot until the movie gets rolling. But I love that about the film. But I can see why audiences, especially in the first 20 minutes, may have become overwhelmed and overstimulated with chaos and anxiety. But that's what the Safdies did on purpose. The film is just a 90-minute anxiety trip, and they did it with such absolute brilliant filmmaking and writing and performances from the actors. But I think that might be why audiences might not have liked the film, because of the tone that they created. But I think they did it perfectly for me.
Yeah, even though Adam Sandler gave one of his rare dramatic film performances, because obviously he makes a lot of movies. I mean, the guy he gets $20 million per movie, has huge deals with Netflix, comedic acting icon, but every few years he puts out a gem of a performance, which he's always capable of. Punch Drunk Love is great. He's even great in the Meyerowitz stories. And then also, Uncut Gems, he's terrific.
Reign Over Me, he's good.
Yeah, so he's got some great performances. He's always capable of these kinds of acting roles. And I love when he does them. He doesn't have to do them constantly. People always ask, why doesn't Adam Sandler do dramatic roles? Because the guy's making bank, having a good time with his friends, making silly movies. I mean, that's what he does. That's what he's always done. And right now, the guy's touring, selling out arenas, doing music and comedy at the same time, which is incredible.
The thing is, you got to understand, he's been doing this for so long, and he's gotten to the point where it's like, he probably cares more about enjoying the process more than he does about, I got to make the best movies possible. He's having, like you said, he's having fun with his friends. He's really enjoying the process of making those movies. He's making a really good amount of money as well. I just think that he chose quality of life over pursuing like super critical acclaimed movies that would be harder to make. I think he cares more about his happiness and his joy of making those movies more than he does about like awards.
Yeah, and this was a huge snub for him not getting nominated for Uncut Gems.
I thought he was a shoo-in.
Yeah, me too, for at least a nomination. But both these movies have incredibly strong lead performances. Robert Pattinson in Good Time as Connie Nikas, and then Adam Sandler as Howard Ratner in Uncut Gems. Characters are they're pretty similar in terms of like the similarities between Good Time and Uncut Gems. Obviously, New York City is a main player in both films. It's kind of the heartbeat of both movies and the Safdie brothers style. New York City is basically another character in both of these films. The backdrop of the stories always takes place here. And, you feel the pulse of that environment, of the people with the non-actors that they cast in many roles, just like the Coen brothers do when they make a movie like No Country for Old Men. There's plenty of non-actors in that movie and other movies the Coen brothers make and other filmmakers do to add authenticity. But New York City is such a huge thematic element and just, like I said, another character to both of these films.
And also, especially in Uncut Gems, you get the Uncut Gems.
You're stuck saying
Julia Fox ruined that word for me.
I was Josh Safdie's mouse when he wrote this.
Especially in Uncut Gems, you get to see the Jewish subculture of New York City, which I found as a very interesting device in the Uncut Gems script. I really like to see the culture, especially like the songs they sing, that special dinner they have. I found that
Passover.
No, but like the ritual they do.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
You know what I mean? The prayers.
So that's the Seder plate. That's the reading of the liberation of the Jewish slaves. That's where they're reading off the plagues, which is part of that story. And then the afikomen, which is that sack that is hidden that's full of money. Okay. And so whichever child finds that gets all the money.
Gotcha. So those are the things I've never seen in a movie before, and I love seeing things like that. Like so many movies that's just generally like the same like American culture in a lot of ways,
or like American Jewish culture.
Exactly. But to see this, it's very specific, and they take you behind the closed doors of Jewish families, especially what they do during holidays and religious celebrations. I love that. It's a great flourish in that film, and I really adore it. And I love when different cultures are really infused into a film so specifically. And that really comes to the Safdies, their backgrounds, their love for New York City really just pours into it, but also their familiarity with New York City, understanding how to film it, on how to photograph it, what kinds of people to cast. Because all of these side characters, they feel like just real people in the city. They don't feel like actors, like you said earlier. Even the actors they cast, like professional actors, they still feel like they fit whatever subculture or vibe they're going for. Like they have the actor from Captain Phillips. He's in Good Time, and he's just great in that role. It's really terrific to see him in it. I love the casting of these films. It is very reminiscent of the Coen brothers. And I love the Safdie's filming style. They do a combination of handheld, a lot of Steadicam, a lot of tracking, but with very long lenses. The lenses are most of the time extremely long, like 50 mil up to 90 mil, even higher. And it gives you that great subject in a portrait with the kind of blurry background. But they'll do it on like tracking shots. They'll do it on like leading handheld shots, which is kind of hard to pull off. Really complex focusing as well. The focus puller on both those movies did a terrific job. I love the aesthetic they created. And then when they go wide, it's really impactful when you get to see the actual, like a full set. But they utilize real locations, real lighting, practical lighting. Every room feels like a real room. They're not interested in creating like movie lighting or ambiance, and they actually take advantage of a lot of natural environments that they shoot in. They're not shooting in sets. I don't believe they built any set for any of the movies, possibly. It seems like they're all real spaces in the world, which I think makes a lot of difference because it limits how you can shoot things, but in a way, it adds to the chaos. They're not building a false wall that they can just remove and throw the entire crew behind. They're just working in a confined space, and they have to figure out how to shoot that. And that's what I think adds to the realism that they create. They remind me very much, it's like if Martin Scorsese and the Belgian filmmakers, the Dardennes brothers, like meshed and had a baby, like they would be their babies.
It's the Safdie brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
You're thinking of Barkhad Abdi, the Oscar-nominated actor from Captain Phillips, who has a role in Good Time as the security guard at the amusement park there. And the cinematography is really terrific in both. If I had to pick a movie that I prefer over the other, you know, we loved like comparing films, and obviously people are always going to compare Good Time and Uncut Gems because they're the first two major films from the Safdie brothers, and even though they're very different, they still have very similarities, but we're putting them together because everyone's going to compare them. Most people, when they talk about one, they talk about the other, they bring up the other, and you know, it's just where they are at in their career. Personally, I think I prefer Good Time more than Uncut Gems. I think I like the energy more. I think although I prefer the characters in Uncut Gems, I think Howard's a terrific character, so isn't everybody else. Better ensemble, you could say, better supporting characters and actors. There's more of them. I think just for me, Good Time, the pacing, the energy, the story, the ridiculous nature of this character who's just running amok through New York City, on the run basically within the first 10 minutes of this movie. He's running from police. He's trying to save his brother from police custody. Spoiler alert, he breaks his brother out of police custody, finds out that it's not his brother, it's some other random guy who's been arrested and is in police custody in an emergency room, just trying to right his wrongs. I just think I connect better with the story and the filmmaking of Good Time, because I think Uncut Gems, they had to kind of pull back from their style a little bit, because when you watch Good Time, they are up in your face the whole time with almost every single shot. Lots of close-ups, but it adds so much visceral quality to the filmmaking, to the characters, to the story. They pull the camera back quite a bit in Good Time with their style, but obviously they're using...
You mean in Uncut?
I mean in Uncut Gems, obviously what I say.
You said Good Time.
Sorry. In Uncut Gems, they're pulling the camera back a little more, less close-ups, less in your face with the characters. But obviously, we have bigger set pieces, larger casts, more crew members, and more actors in a scene. And it just feels a little different, as well as obviously the same style. But I think right now, after watching them both very recently, I prefer Good Time to Uncut Gems.
I also forgot to mention that they shoot on film,
yes,
which always looks really stunning, and the gritty nature they capture is really fantastic. I would say I prefer Good Time as well. I think it's because, like you said, it has an emotional connection, unlike Uncut Gems. In Good Time, you really see the connection Connie has with his brother and the love he has for him. And everything is motivated by, you know, trying to help his brother, even though he is always making the wrong decision, and he poorly goes about that. And he is very selfish in a lot of ways, but the love between them is kind of an emotional center for the film, whereas Uncut Gems, you don't really have that. Howard has his muse.
Yes.
Yeah, he has Julia, and then he has his family, but you don't really see a sense of real love for his family or a sense of real love for Julia. It's more of like it's all selfish for him.
You know, did you notice in that movie, he never responds, I love you, back to Julia, not until he hits the big bet at the end, and she's saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. He's like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Multiple times she says, I love you to Howard. Yeah. He never says it back. He'll hang up on her after he says it, because Howard is a very selfish person. He basically gets what he deserves in this movie. When you're comparing Connie to Howard, they're both crooks, they're both criminals. Connie's more of a criminal than Howard. He's just more of this gambling addict who's in debt to so many different people. He I guess you could say he kind of is a crook in terms of what he does with constantly pawning off people's property in order to help try to pay for his debts as well as pay for his gambling addiction. So you could say selling people's property without their permission. I don't know what that constitutes in the pawning industry and business and in these markets and jewelry companies, how legal that is, or if it's illegal or not, but it seems illegal.
It's gotta be illegal. It's not his, like the Celtics ring is not his property to pawn. So he's pawning it's basically he pawned a stolen item in a way.
Well, it's not stolen because he was given it to him.
But that's like if I let you borrow my car and you pawned it.
But I wonder if it would stand up in court because we have a collateral agreement.
True. I suppose if you have something that's collateral, you're not allowed to sell it.
Whether it's legal or not, it's very sketchy. And very rude and mean and horrible and nasty.
It's very uncouth.
Yeah, it's uncouth. Howard is a very unlikable character. Although the audience, you start to really root for him towards the third act of the film. You're wanting him to win this bet, even though he is destroying every relationship he's ever had. He's destroying his family. He's destroying his life at home with his kids and his wife. And in addition to, he's related to the biggest loan shark that he owes the most money to. It's his brother-in-law. As well as he's destroying his relationship with Gooey. I think Gooey's his father, where he has him pay $190,000 for that. But the thing with Howard is he can get out of his debts multiple times in this movie. 3 times in this movie in Uncut Gems, Howard can get out of his debt. So the first time he can get out of his debt, this is crazy.
It's unbelievable.
I made a list.
Whenever I watch this movie, I'm always like, oh my God, what are you doing?
It's because that's how great the character is.
That's
These
the characters.
in
They
both
stuck
of them,
to it.
They have so much great depth. That's why they're so good.
He's a perfect depiction of a self-destructive human being.
Yeah, so Howard was out of his debt multiple times in Uncut Gems. He got caught making a bet with the cash that wasn't his because he hit on that bet because he was showing it off in his text message to Aram that he sent the message with the cash. He went to Gary and pulled the bet because he said Howard was using his money to make the bet, even though he would have hit on that bet.
Huge on that.
If he didn't send that photo to his brother-in-law saying that he had the cash while he was being tailed, they would have never found out that he put a bet with Gary with the cash that he could have been paying him with. So even though he hit, the bet got pulled. So he was going to be out of his debt if he just shut his mouth and wasn't showing off the money, even though he's trying to keep him cool. Kevin Garnett offered him $175,000 in the jewelry store in cash in a plastic bag for the opal in the first 30 minutes of this movie, which would have gotten him out of all of his major debts. He probably still would be in debt to some people, but his biggest
I feel like he would have broken even if he had that money.
Close to it, but every one of those dollars would have gone to the multiple loan sharks that he owed money to all over the city. Not because obviously his biggest debt was $110,000 to his brother-in-law, but also those other 2 jewelers who were constantly running back.
$38K.
Yeah, so he owed a lot of people a lot of money, but that would have probably got him off the hook with everything, turned it down. And then KG outbid Gooey at the auction, KG offered $180,000 for the opal.
Wasn't enough.
And Howard, even though he had it in the bag, he had the $180K.
He made profit.
He would have made an extra $5K on that instead of what he was offered by KG originally. He had Gooey bet up again to $190,000, which means Gooey paid $190,000, was going to get the money back, obviously, but it meant that Howard was now in debt to Gooey $38,000 because of the 20% cut that he was going to have to pay to the Adleys, the auction company. But all 3 of those situations, Howard would have been out of his debt free.
But then you forgot the big one.
Oh yeah,
when he won big.
He won big,
and then he took the money. Not when he won big, but when KG gave him $175 cash.
So 4 times he got out of his debt.
And the sharks are coming. They're coming into his store to collect the money. His brother-in-law and his goonies. And what does Howard do? He's like, you know what? He like pumped himself up talking to KG. He's like, you know what? We're the same, you and I. And then he just he hands it to Julia outside the window to make a huge bet at Mohegan Sun. He had his problem solved. He had everything.
$165,000 cash in his hand.
And yet he still chose to make that bet. It's just great character and complete commitment to the character. And also so many, like every other filmmaker would have, like most other filmmakers would have just written like a happier ending where he solved his problems and it all worked out. But what happens in this film, Howard he's an addict to gambling. He really is a true addict. And it's depicted clearly in those scenes where even when he has it, even when he's on top, even when he has his problem solved, he can't help himself. He needs to bet it again. He needs to make more. Nothing's ever enough. So the thing with this film is, and what's great about the story and that character is, he would have never had a happy ending. He was going to keep doing this self-destructive behavior until it eventually killed him. He could not help himself. He was never going to change. And I think that's the brilliance of it.
And you know what's ironic is they never explain how he got into a $110,000 debt with his brother-in-law. He's a loan shark, so you can assume maybe it was gambling, but I think it's because he asked him for that loan to get the opal, because remember, KG's like, how much did the opal cost? Come on, be real with me. Like, How much did that cost? He's like, $100K. he's in debt $110,000. So I'm assuming that he was he got $100,000 from his brother-in-law, and maybe he has like a 10% vig on it, so it's up to $110,000. It's ironic that the opal, which is his saving grace to get out of all of this huge debt, he finally gets it, and it's his undoing. It's his death, is his obsession with this opal and wanting to up the ante even more, because he did it to himself by purchasing the opal with a loan from his brother-in-law, which he never paid off.
So, yeah, that's a great theory. I have a different theory, because Arno says to him when they're in the car, he's like, you know how offensive it is to me to know that you've just been placing bets with my money all over town? I think that Arno is referring to like the past several months of how he betting with all of the money he's lent him. And so I think that Howard borrowed money from Arno for betting and gambling. I think that he spent like a tiny amount of money for the opal. I think that he spent like next to nothing for the opal, which is why he's so hesitant to tell at KG. And I think that telling KG it cost $100K was a complete lie.
That's
possible. To make it seem like he wasn't totally ripping KG off. I think that Howard got his hands on that opal for a really tiny price.
It's possible,
because that's why it was shipped in a fish.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. If he paid $100K for it, like a real price, it would have been shipped properly. You know what I mean?
Well, they had to put it in the fish to hide it from the mines, the people who are in control of the mines.
No, I understand, but that's what I'm saying. Like he wouldn't pay these miners $100K
with no guarantee of an actual.
He would pay them like probably $1,000. So I think that he paid like $1,000 for the opal, because that's a lot of money to those people around the world. And then and that's what I think. And he just owed Arno for a long time. But what's great about these two films is the lead characters, they have a lot of similarities, but they are quite different. But they are both self-destructive. And what's really different is that Connie is a criminal, and Howard he's just a gambling addict. He's not really committing crimes per se, but Connie, he'll rob a bank without hesitation. You know, he'll do whatever he can to get what he wants or to save his brother. He's happy to break the law. He framed the security guard for their crimes. You know what I mean? He did that without even having second thoughts about that. So that's the major difference between these two characters. Yes, they're both self-destructive, but Connie is more, he's a straight criminal. You know what I mean? He is a bad dude.
And both of them, they don't really have much of a conscience or a moral compass, but Connie, of course, you can tell, actually cares about his brother, even though you could argue abandons his brother when they're getting chased by the police. It's hard to tell whether he abandoned him on purpose or is just running ahead of him and got was just too caught up in the moment. And we never see when he looks behind and sees his brother isn't there. He just keeps running. He leaves his brother at the mall to get arrested. But he spends the rest of the film trying to rescue his brother from police custody. First, he tries to go through the bail bonds, which actually that character was a real bonds guy.
You can tell just the way those characters talk. And obviously they have an Oscar winner, Jennifer Jason Leigh, there as well. But it's amazing to have like an Oscar winner acting opposite like an actual bondsman.
What did she win for?
Hateful Eight.
She was nominated. She
was nominated?
Yeah,
sorry.
She didn't win. It's all good.
Okay.
That's why I'm here, man.
I thought I'm going to have to double check.
So actually, yeah, go ahead. Eric Roberts originally played...
from Dark Knight?
Yeah, exactly. He originally played the bail bondsman. He's an Oscar nominee as well. But they reshot the scene and recast it with an actual bondsman, Eric Paykert. Paykert had been a bondsman for the last 20 years, and he actually owns the office used in Queens with his wife, Astrid Corrales. Initially, he was asked only for the use of the office space. Eventually, the Safdies asked Paykert and his wife to actually play the roles, and they reshot the entire scene with him in the role of the bondsman instead of Eric Roberts.
Oscar nominee, you're right.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you have, the thing is, you already have one of the biggest stars alive in the movie. That already sells you. That sells the audience. You know what I mean? And I suppose with a film like this and with the style in which the Safdie brothers film and the way their tone works with their storytelling, you don't want recognizable faces in roles because then the actors really work. And so I suppose it makes sense is to limit the number of faces an audience would recognize and things like this.
Not to mention, Robert Pattinson's almost unrecognizable in this role as Connie with the hair, the facial hair. I mean, he's very gaunt in this film. He's a skinny guy, but he's especially gaunt in this movie as Connie.
The goatee.
Yeah, the goatee especially.
Really changes his face.
And he went really into character in this film. And like before production, he was like living in this like basement apartment, eating nothing but tuna fish. The Safdie brothers came and checked it out. I don't know if this is one of those lies that Robert Pattinson tells, but I read an interview about it where he said that like he was living in this basement apartment just for like weeks, getting into character for Connie. They also did a lot of improvisation with this script. All the actors didn't read the script but were given a detailed backstory of their characters and were told to improvise every scene, while Robert Pattinson and Benny Safdie actually had scripts but were still told to react to the others as well as they could in terms of seeming like it's all improvised, which is really interesting. And Pattinson, he actually approached the Safdie brothers to work together on a project after he stumbled upon a poster for their movie Heaven Knows What, starring Ariel Holmes, who was a former street junkie, and the movie's based on her personal experiences. He just saw a poster for that movie. It's very interesting. It's like a sideways, horizontal poster, neon pink. And he reached out to the Safdie brothers, interested in working together on something. And the Safdie brothers, they were trying to get Uncut Gems made, but they're like, all right, this is Robert Pattinson. He seems like a cool guy, seems really motivated to work on something. And then they started writing Good Time for Robert Pattinson to star in.
That's amazing. The Safdies also, especially Josh, have a lot of work in documentaries as well. Josh actually made a documentary in the 2010s, as well as other documentary shorts, but also feature-length ones too. So it's not like this was obviously their breakout, but they were making films in some capacity for a decade before this came out.
Yeah, Daddy Longlegs.
Yeah, and lots of shorts. This is a great short where Benny plays a street performer, like one of those people who pretend to be like a gold statue. It's amazing, and they're just really talented guys, but their style is just so naturalistic and so European, the handheld nature of it. I really love it. But also, so with Pattinson, I read in an interview, I saw an interview with him where he said he approached the Safdies, but also he approached Robert Eggers as well around the same time because he liked The Witch, and he said to Eggers, give me something that's like as weird as you can. He's like, whatever the weirdest thing you have is, just send it to me and I'll do it. So I'm sure he said the same thing to Safdie. He just wants to stretch his acting chops and push himself as an actor, which he's always done since Twilight in a lot of ways. If you see his work outside of studio pictures, it's really fantastic. And one of his best ones, which not many people have seen, is Lost City of Z. He's amazing in that role. Really, really fantastic.
High Life, he's excellent.
Yeah, High
in
Life
as well.
is so good. In the Cronenberg films he did, he's just such a talented guy. And I'm just glad that people are recognizing it the last few years.
Especially because of the Batman now.
Mm-hmm. But what's also great about the casting of this film is Ben Safdie, Benny wasn't originally supposed to play this role. They were trying to cast it. And I believe the story goes that when they were going through the casting process, Benny was reading as Nick to other actors, I believe, and then they ended up just being like, you know what, you're doing such a good job. Why don't you just play Nick? I believe they were trying to find actors for that role, and then eventually he settled on it. And man, does he crush this role? I'm shocked he didn't get Oscar nominated for this for supporting actor, because he really is remarkable as Nick. I love the film that it opens on just a tight close-up on Nick, on Benny Safdie, and he's in that interview with I think it's a therapist of some kind, or a social worker possibly, but it's like a really tight close-up. It's like it's framed like it's in his face, like you can't even see his chin or his hair. It's so tight, and the film just opens with that, holding on that for about a minute, and then Connie shows up and just ruins the entire interview and takes his brother away. I found that to be such a great way to start the film, because right away you get the emotional heartbeat of the film front and center, and that really is what allows the audience to connect to Connie, because Connie, like Howard, is an extremely unlikable person. Yes, it's Robert Pattinson and everyone loves him, but the character is despicable in a lot of ways and extremely unlikable. So you need Nick in the film to really connect with Connie. Same thing with Howard. That's why casting is so important. Casting Adam Sandler was probably the only way the film would work, because everyone loves Adam Sandler. Everyone loves him. He's one of the most likable, relatable actors in history. And even though Howard is so just is unlikable and just like a terrible human being, it's still Adam Sandler. So there is a connection to him, and there is like in the subconscious, like there's a love for him because it's Adam Sandler.
Yeah, when Connie's trying to find his brother for the majority of the film, you're connecting to him that way. Even though he's committing crimes, you're like, he cares about his brother. He's trying to rescue his brother, and it's a crazy shocker when it doesn't end up being his Nick that he's rescued from police custody, because there was
Great twist.
The casts and everything all over his face. And what's his name? Buddy Duress was the actor who played that character.
Ray.
Plays Ray. Buddy Duress actually is a criminal who has trouble staying out of jail despite being a really talented actor.
He's great, yeah.
He spent a lot of time in jail the last like 5 or 6 years, but I believe he's like out now and hoping to find work
So
more.
I'm guessing that story he told is not much different from like his real life.
It's actually, that's happened to him in terms of like jumping out of a cab. That was the real life story. Like the great he has a great flashback.
It's great, yeah.
Where he tells Connie like everything that's happened to him in the last 24 hours. Like he just got out of jail and then he was back in jail in police custody.
Like he was doing acid within like 2 hours.
Jumping out of a cabbie. And it's a real story. I don't know how much of it in terms of was he in jail the night before, but I know that the story of him jumping out of the cabbie and then like getting into an ER was based on a real story of his in his past, which is wild. But Buddy Duress, super talented actor. He's terrific in this movie, holding his own against Robert Pattinson. But the guy, he's had trouble with staying out of jail the last 5 years, but he's out now. I believe he's working on some other stuff. And in terms of like real people in real life playing roles that aren't actors, Peter Verby, he's actually the actor who plays the psychiatrist in the film who's helping
I've seen him in stuff. What is he? Who is he?
He's actually a criminal defense lawyer and represented both Buddy Duress in the past, and also represented Josh Safdie after Shooting Rap, because Josh Safdie got arrested during production of the film because what he says was he was driving around in a shady car and police thought he was selling drugs out of. But he actually got arrested while they were making this movie.
What? Really?
And so Verby represented Josh Safdie after they wrapped production.
The thing is, like, you don't need an actor every time, and that's like I think one of the greatest castings of a real life person is in Captain Phillips. Two Captain Phillips references in this episode. Who would have thunk it?
Sick reference, bro.
But when Phillips is rescued and he's brought down to the ER room of the boat, and he is being worked on by the doctor there, the ER doctor. It's a real person. That woman was not an actor. That's her real profession. But the way she speaks to him it just feels real. You know, it feels like the way a medical professional would talk to someone. It's not an actor acting, because they would act it. You know what I mean? She was talking to Tom Hanks the way she talks. She's talked to 1,000 patients, and that really sells the scene when it's done the right way. Especially if you're shooting minimalist handheld, like Paul Greengrass likes to do, like the Safdies mostly like to do. And when you're shooting for realism, you're not using studio lighting, when you're using practical lighting, when you're using gritty film looks, and it doesn't have to look like it's a movie set. When you have a real person saying the words instead of an actor acting the words, sometimes that makes a world of difference and really makes it feel like that realism is just like heightened.
Some more similarities between these two films. Obviously, crime is a major part of both these movies. Creativity, highly creative films. Authenticity, that's a word we're throwing around a lot.
It's a word
recently.
you've been throwing around a lot.
What was the episode?
Scorsese.
Was it Scorsese?
So in the I've been meaning to tell you.
Was it the Departed episode?
No,
Scorsese
in the
Spotlight.
In the Scorsese Spotlight, because you were talking about the authenticity with the production design of his movies.
Yeah,
that's where it started. Ever since then, you've said authenticity like 10 times an episode. Like, not even kidding. You've said it already like 5 times.
I'm just going to get a shirt made that says authenticity.
Honestly, we should make a drinking game out of it.
But I mean, in terms of authenticity and something being unique, we've seen there's 10,000 movies that are set in New York City.
At least 10,000.
But this one, these two
maybe 11,000.
These two are so unique and memorable, and you're still thinking about them versus the average movie shot in New York City. You just forget about it as soon as you watch it, if you even finish watching that film. But I think that's one of the great strengths of these movies is they're so unique that you remember them. And obviously, New York City is a main setting. both of these movies have very unhappy endings for our lead characters. Obviously, at the end of Good Time, Connie finally gets arrested. He's been on this spree, this crime spree.
Like a Grand Theft Auto spree.
Insane.
With less murder.
The crimes he's been committing all night are absurd. And he finally meets his demise in terms of getting arrested for the original bank robbery, but also I'm sure they're going to put on a ton of extra charges for everything he's been up to that night, like breaking
The security guard.
breaking that guy out of police custody in prison, probably an accessory to, not necessarily a murder, but when the character dies, I mean, I'm sure they can label something onto that.
When Ray dies?
Yeah, well, actually, it's accidental suicide.
Yeah, well, not accidental suicide. It's an accident.
Yeah, it's an accident.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not an accidental suicide. Well, he accidentally killed himself.
No, he didn't. He just accidentally died. He didn't accidentally. I mean, yeah, he died by his own hand, but it's not suicide. I don't think you could label it suicide.
Yeah, it's not suicide, right?
Accidental death.
He accidentally dies.
Yeah.
Actually, so except for that, it wouldn't be a crime that he's labeled to. But all these other crimes. But he's
got a lot of
finally gets arrested. One of the best shots in the entire movie is when Connie's finally arrested, and he's just got Robert Pattinson has this great look on his face, where he's just blank staring, like right off lens at us in the audience, getting into the cab. It's like a minute shot held through the cage of Pattinson as Connie, staring into what his life is about to become, because all he was trying to do, despite robbing a bank, was trying to save his brother, and this has all happened to him ever since.
And I'm glad you pointed out that look, because I think that's one of the best pieces of acting that Pattinson's ever done. Because the look on his face when he's arrested, it's the most it's just he's selling like the pit in his stomach. You know what I mean? The shock, and then when I watch him in that scene, my stomach drops. You know what I mean? That feeling of like something terrible happening, and you just feel that horrible feeling in your gut. He projects that just with his face. And it's just such a brilliant, subtle piece of acting, the way he slightly positions his face. And Pattinson is an extremely controlled actor. He puts a lot of work into his craft. I think people would be surprised. Obviously, he was just a Twilight guy for so long, but he's so much more than that. I think this is really one of the best subtle pieces of acting I've seen in a long time. And every time I see it, I get a pit in my stomach. And that's just brilliant acting. And so few actors can do what he does. And there's a reason why Matt Reeves wrote the Batman for him. There's a reason why Bong Joon-ho chose him as the lead of his next movie. There's a reason why Chris Nolan cast him in the biggest movie he ever made. This guy, he's the real deal in so many ways. And he's already on this just absolutely meteoric rise of just great filmmaking. And the next 10 years of his career is just going to be insane. I can't wait to see it.
It's gonna be all time.
Yeah, like he's positioning himself to be an all-timer for sure. The Rover is another great one we forgot to mention that he's just fantastic in. But the Good Time, the reason why I like Good Time better than Uncut Gems is Good Time has a sensational first act, like absolutely mind-boggling first act. I think that the second and third acts don't really live up to the first act completely. I think it just got a little too, it kind of lost its momentum in a little bit of, you know what I mean? With the carnival area and stuff. I love it all, but it just kind of lost that momentum and that energy of the first act, because he takes Nick, they rob a bank, they get in their driver's car, and then the pink mist sprays all over the place, and they're like, oh, shit, what the hell? And then they're running away. They escape the cops. Then they manage to change in that fast food joint in the bathroom. It's just chaos, and you're like, oh, my God, how are they going to get out of this? They're covered in pink paint. And then another cop chase, and Nick gets arrested, and then Connie's like, shit, what do I do? That's the first act. It's absolutely remarkable. The momentum is just like, it propels you forward, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I love the pink spray. When I saw this movie for the first time, I was like, oh my God, they're fucked. It's just brilliant. Brilliant writing, and the way that they filmed it was just ridiculously so cool. And oh my God, I love the first act.
Ridiculously so cool.
That's why I'd say Uncut Gems, its first act I love as well, but it doesn't have the same, like, it doesn't have like that same strong cohesive first act that Good Time has.
But it has a great second and third act.
I think it has a better second half than Good Time's second half. But Good Time all around, I think, is just a better film.
I would argue also that people don't like to watch, maybe didn't like Uncut Gems because the experience you have when watching both these films is obviously the extreme paranoia that you feel as well. But when you're watching Uncut Gems, there are multiple times where you think you're having a heart attack and you're just like, you can't breathe.
Anxiety.
And you're feeling the intense anxiety that Howard's feeling. There's a sequence like a little halfway through the film. It's about 5-6 minutes long where everything is crashing in on this guy from every direction. The phones, it's
The
doors, it's everything. The doors won't open up and everything's going insanely off the rails. And from every different direction, security cameras, everyone's looking for him and trying to grab him. And then once it's over, you're just like, I can't breathe right now.
Yeah.
But it lasts like 6 minutes and it's intense. It's not easy to do.
I find in Uncut Gems most impressive qualities is both the editing and the sound design of the film, and that's a sequence in particular where people are talking over each other. You can barely make out like who you should be listening to, but that's the whole point. You have all these voices going on. You have the sounds of things happening, and the editing is really perfect, and it just creates this horrible feeling of anxiety, and it makes you feel what Howard's feeling. It's so incredible, and it's all editing and sound design and sound mixing, and the crew did a fantastic job with both those aspects of the film. Those, I think, are strengths that it has over Good Time, for sure.
In addition to the music, which we'll get into a little bit after our intermission, because the music for both of these films is sensational. Before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. We have different tiers, $2, $5, $10, $25, and $100 tier. $100 tier patrons, you get the ultimate perk in terms of getting a personal watch party, a private episode that you get to customize and request yourself, as well as coming on the show after 3 months. But all the tiers have great perks, so look into those. Also, be sure to get tickets to our first ever live show, which will be in Los Angeles on January 21st, 2023. That's a Saturday at noon Pacific time. We'll be performing in Los Angeles downtown. You can get tickets in person, or you can get live broadcast tickets and watch the show as it's happening around the world, wherever you are. Links to both those tickets, the live in person as well as broadcast digital online experience tickets, are accessible from the link in our Instagram bio. I'll put the links below in this episode as well on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com. Use our special promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com has a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library. Everything from classic film to Marvel movies, sci-fi, to indie dramas like these. They got you covered. They also have all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. The best place, of course, to get your posters is at movieposters.com. Don't forget to use our promo code Raiders10. It'll get you 10% off your order today.
And big thank you to Black Magic Design. They sent us 2 of their cinema cameras, the brand new G2 6K pocket cinema cameras that we use to film the show. Now, these are incredibly accessible and affordable. If you're on a budget and you're an independent filmmaker or videographer, we cannot recommend Black Magic Design enough. These will only run you a couple grand a piece. They're compatible with EF mount lenses, so if you already have some Canon lenses, they work perfectly with that, as well as other photography lenses or the really cool cinema lenses as well. Cinema cameras are the game changer that your production might need, so we recommend going to blackmagicdesign.com and checking out their Pocket Cinema 6K G2 cameras. Thanks so much, Blackmagic.
Yeah, and also DaVinci Resolve Studio is a terrific editing software I've fallen in love with.
Anthony edited the short film on it.
Yeah, so let's get into the intermission, man.
All right, let's go. You ready for the movie quote competition, Anthony?
I'm ready.
When you get to hell, John, tell them Daisy sent you.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, who's...
You think Constantine?
Yeah. Shit.
Let me say it again. When you get to hell, John, tell them Daisy sent you.
Oh, it's Hateful Eight.
Yeah. Daisy Domergue.
I actually just watched it last week. I watched the extended edition.
She has very few quotes that aren't highly offensive to say on here.
Surprised you found one. Because it's the only time because she's talking to like a white guy, and
Yeah.
so she didn't say anything horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, guess this quote. You know, we're sitting on 4 million pounds of fuel, one nuclear weapon, and a thing that has 270,000 moving parts built by the lowest bidder. Makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Can you say that one more time?
You know, we're sitting on 4 million pounds of fuel, one nuclear weapon, and a thing that has 270,000 moving parts built by the lowest bidder. Makes you feel good, doesn't it?
That's a really good quote.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to hear so.
4 million pounds of fuel. Is this a craft?
Think about what would have that much fuel. What would have that much fuel?
I mean, 4 million pounds of fuel.
Well-
It's gonna be like a battleship or a submarine, or no, like
Flying fuel.
flying fuel.
It's a spacecraft.
It's gonna be a spacecraft, a huge spacecraft.
A boat has 4 million pounds of fuel.
I don't know. I've never been on a battleship. Have you ever been on a battleship? It seems like they got a lot on there.
I don't know.
I feel like it maybe Independence Day. No, not Independence Day.
I'll give you one more guess.
Something. All right, let me think.
You can't drag this out. It's already been a minute.
I can drag out as much as I want.
This is my show too.
I will drag this out for minutes on end as I stall, trying to rack my tiny brain for this answer.
Yeah, you got the tiny one.
I don't know.
Armageddon.
Armageddon.
So that the 270,000 moving parts is the oil drill.
Gotcha.
It's a drill. Yeah.
Gotcha. Good quote. Sick reference, bro.
Thanks, bro.
All right, guess this movie release year. The Machinist.
2004.
2003.
No! Damn, I thought it was 04. You sure about that? I'm just kidding. I trust you.
Quite positive.
I trust you. Well, quite positive isn't completely sure.
Quite positive is. I'm very positive.
You're very positive?
Yes.
I just gotta double check. Machinist. 2004, motherfucker. I was right. You were wrong.
Whoops.
I knew it was 04.
Whoops.
See, I felt so strongly about that. I was like, there's no way he's right. Even though, yeah.
Gotcha.
Do your research next time.
That was all I bit. That was all a bit.
I knew it. I know Christian Bale way too much to know that it was 04. Okay, here's this movie released here. Dazed and Confused.
1990. 1993.
Yeah. Nice.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks. Moving on to movie pop quiz time. What Showtime TV series did Jennifer Jason Leigh appear in 16 episodes of, which stars a suburban mother who sells drugs to her neighbors?
Weeds.
Nice.
Thanks. I actually watched that show, so
Yeah.
I know that. Me and Mom used to watch that together.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, here's my quiz. Ben Affleck played Jack Ryan in what film?
And make sure you got to let people guess the answer as well, Anthony.
Sorry, yeah, I just got so excited.
Fast.
I get so
quick
excited.
over there.
Quick draw McGraw.
All right, Ben Affleck is Jack Ryan.
I'll give you a hint. Morgan Freeman is also in it.
Yeah. It's the submarine one.
Nope, that's Alec Baldwin's.
That's Alec Baldwin's.
That's the Hunt for Red October.
The word time is in it.
No,
The word
the submarine
autumn.
one.
The word autumn is in it.
Autumn and a Jack Ryan
Yeah, why not?
story.
Autumn Rising. That sounds like a Jack Ryan movie.
Does not. Does not.
I know this, man. I know this. Just let me work the kinks.
Here we go with the
This is how
stalling.
I got the other one.
This is the longest intermission we've ever done. You
Hey,
didn't get the other one.
You got somewhere to be.
You did not get the
no,
other
I
one.
got the 1993 right.
Yeah, but you didn't get the other one.
Well, that was the other one I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Listen, you're distracting me. I'm trying to get the gears working here. All right, Ben Affleck is Jack Ryan in. I can see the poster. That's it. I can see the goddamn poster.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little red on it.
There's a little red on it.
There's a little red on it.
Yeah.
There's a radar in there in the movie. There's a radar.
You're still thinking of the fucking submarine one.
No.
By the way, that's a really good one.
Yeah, it's
The
awesome.
Hunt for October.
way,
It's so awesome that James thought it was this one.
didn't say that. I never said that. You brought up Hunt for Red October. All I said was Autumn Rising.
You said the submarine one.
There's got to be a submarine in this.
There is none.
It's a Tom Clancy movie. Come on. God damn it. Freaking, I don't know.
The sum of all fears.
Knew it.
You don't seem too beat up about it.
All right.
Well, glad that's over.
What do we got for haters this week, pal? We actually had a good hater on YouTube.
Oh, tell me that hater. I have some right here too.
So you've seen that I put it in the story. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
So burn. It was on Movie News 51, which was posted 6 months ago. It's an old Movie News episode. This person just freshly watched it.
That's almost a year old.
Yeah. He wrote, lasted 5 minutes. Holy Wayne and Garth, except Wayne and Garth were funnier and brighter. I replied, congrats. You lasted 4 minutes and 50 seconds longer than when you...
You ruined your own joke.
Congrats. You lasted 4 minutes and 50 seconds longer than with your wife.
This is good.
But look what kind of person writes that.
Burn.
We're not Wayne and Garth. And also, I'm sorry we're not the comedic geniuses of Dana Carvey and Mike Myers. My goodness.
Also, I mean, we're just talking about the news.
Yeah, it's a Movie News episode.
I mean, what are you expecting?
What we do with those episodes, if you've never watched them, I'm sure you all listening have, we list off all the biggest topics in the entertainment news for TV and
we're
film.
Just reading the news.
And react. Like, Jesus Christ, bro.
What else do you want us to say? Here's the new trailer. Do you want us to, like, I don't know. What else do you want?
We're not funny enough and we're a couple of boneheads. We're not bright enough.
Not good enough for me. Neckbeard.
No one's blonde either.
It's just yeah. So I don't know who's Garth and you're
whoever's
Garth.
wearing glasses, I guess.
You wear glasses
quite a bit.
See, the thing is, I wear glasses constantly outside of the podcast, but on the podcast I don't because they hurt my ears when I wear them with the headphones on.
I'm sorry to hear that, Anthony.
It
hurts his ears, everybody.
Well, not my ears, like right on my
right behind the ears,
the side of my head. It pushes them into my ears.
It's really hard.
It's because of the headphones.
It's the headphones, man.
Shut up. Thank God. Oh my! But you wear glasses on the podcast.
It hurts my ears. But,
it hurts my ears.
Be a man.
Be a man. Our brother got me the Be a Man book. I love it. It's so funny.
That guy on Instagram. Yeah, Be a man.
So funny. All right, now to the unsubscribes. Our buddy George Carmy, Movies and Stuff 14. He wrote, "You made an Instagram post today because we so for our Glass Onion episode, there's something crazy happening with our audio. It sounds fine, but then when we uploaded it, both onto Anchor and Spotify, there was an issue where you couldn't hear James's voice, but you could hear my voice.
But only some listeners, not all.
It was so odd.
Some people could hear everything fine. Some people, when they played the episode, specifically on Apple Podcasts, they couldn't hear my voice.
Yeah, and what happened is we got this new audio mixer interface thing that records the audio for us.
This thing.
Yeah, whatever, man. And that's the first time we used it, so that's obviously the problem. But it was so odd because your audio wasn't showing up at, like, it was like so tiny, you could barely hear it.
But only some people.
Yeah. And then I posted, so then I did what I always do, and I made TikTok clips from the episode. And on my end, it sounded fine. And on my phone, it sounded totally fine. But when I posted a clip on TikTok, the audio for you just sounded like this.
I showed Anthony. I'm like, dude, this TikTok clip is messed up.
Yeah, so because I posted the clip, and then like an hour later I checked, because I like to like give it a couple hours and then I'll reply to all the comments rather than just like every time we get a comment reply to it, because I don't have time for that. So I like to just wait a couple hours and like, okay, I'll reply to all these comments and like them all. And I went on the clip and it had 40 comments of saying audio's messed up, audio. What's up with the audio? And I was like, what?
But you posted the same one on Instagram Reels and it was fine.
Yeah. Well, Instagram Reels, a couple people had the problem too.
But not everyone.
But so the thing is, when I uploaded it and when I watched the clip on TikTok, when I watched it on my phone, it sounded fine. But for everyone else, your voice was literally like.
But it's not everyone. Again, it's like half the people heard that, half the people heard it fine.
I don't understand what happened.
Me neither.
It makes no sense because it's not. I wouldn't upload a clip if it sounded like that. You know what I mean?
Obviously, you edited Knives Out. Yeah. So I was like, my first reaction when we got messages about it, I'm like, there's no way Anthony edited this episode and it like sounded terrible. Yeah. It's not like he was like, yeah, this sounds fine. Export.
Sounds good to me. James sounds like it. You can barely hear him. Perfect.
That's how I prefer it anyways.
It's improved.
Anyways, back to George.
So yeah, so it was just a weird thing with the audio. We've reverted back to our old style for today. So George Carmi wrote audio issues, unsubscribed.
His first unsubscribe.
Yeah, he said he's always wanted to join in and say that. So he took advantage of it. Thanks, pal. And then John Paul Roman wrote about the news about the Ana de Armas lawsuit for the film yesterday. He wrote, due to simping for the movie studios in the Ana de Armas lawsuit, unsubscribed. And then Landon Adams wrote, the Avatar thumbnail. That thumbnail will haunt me forever. Thanks, guys. Unsubscribed. Where you gave us blue face.
Dude, that is a great.
You made us Navi with the ears and everything.
Ears, dude. Like it took me like a half hour, but
you even got like our necks though, like in the eyes, the yellow eyes.
That's the creepiest part.
That is messed with me too, man.
The layered is I erased our eyes and I put Navi eyes behind us. So like if you took the
you
Navi
didn't color the eyes.
No. Like they're actual Navi eyes. So if you took that layer out on Photoshop, it would just have hollow eyes.
It'd be like what's that? There's a movie where someone cuts out the eyes of people's faces.
Jeepers Creepers.
Yes, Jeepers Creepers. No. In the magazines.
Oh,
something. I can't remember.
Maniac? No.
Maybe 1 hour photo or something. Something. I'll think of it. And then Gracie Olivia wrote, not a single mention of how talented and beautiful Jamie Flatters is. Unforgivable, unsubscribe. Sorry, Gracie. But that's it for our unsubscribes. Very funny this week.
Yeah, it's good. Sorry again about the Glass Onion episode. We replaced the file, so it should be okay now. But
man, it's just so weird that even the TikTok clip got messed up. It doesn't make any sense.
We're going to run some tests and figure it out. We promise it won't happen again. Now, how about a great... Actually, no new 5-star reviews. So you guys got to step your game up. Come on, those are some rookie numbers. Get those 5-star reviews.
Bump those numbers up.
I'm just kidding.
Fugazi.
You don't have to. We appreciate it though. On this day in film history,
but also if you're a Spotify user, just give us like the 5-star rating is great.
Yeah,
that's super.
That helps as well too.
Yeah.
Now on this day in film history, today's January 2nd, and nothing important happened today. That's it. Like
nothing comes out in January.
Nothing to talk about at all.
It's where movies go to die.
It's literally. I looked it up. I'm like nothing.
Yeah.
There's like 5 movies that were released on this date, and they're not worth bringing up. But my streaming recommendation is The Menu, which just got added to HBO Max for January 2023. And welcome, this is our first episode.
What's on HBO Max?
Yeah.
Man, I feel like we just saw it in theaters.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
They put them out there fast now, dude.
Wow.
They're like within a month.
Not even for rental.
So, again, this is our first episode of 2023. Not Kind Movie News yesterday, but this is like the first 2023 episode. Oh. We thought we'd do something strong with the Safdie brothers.
Start strong. My recommendation is
that was a funny punching motion. And he went start strong and like punched his like old timey boxing fists, like how they fight in gangs in New York.
Yeah, Leo's just like in the bar. I love that. And my streaming recommendation is a movie I watched on Christmas night. It's one of the best Christmas movies ever. Eyes Wide Shut. Stanley Kubrick's last film with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Amazing movie. And Sidney Pollack, who does a great job acting, even though he's a phenomenal director too. Love the movie. There's really nothing like it, and it's just absurdly good. And it's one of the craziest films ever made. But I love Kubrick movies so much, and man, it's awesome.
What's he say? I think that pot's making you act weird, or
it's making you aggressive.
Making you aggressive. All right, let's get back into our Safdie Brothers episode on Good Time and Uncut Gems. I brought up that. Well, I want to talk about the music, but real quick, I want to talk about how we brought up unhappy endings with Good Time for that lead character. Now the lead character of Uncut Gems has a very unhappy ending, although he may not have realized it.
He died happy.
He died with a smile on his face because Howard finally won. He finally hit big. This is what he's been trying to do his entire life. This gambling addict finally hit big. Put all the money he had, $165,000 on this parlay bet for this game. Now to explain that bet real quick, it's pretty much the same thing that he picked on the previous bet that got pulled. So he's betting on the Celtics-Sixers basketball game, which was a real game that they just used for the film.
And it just worked with the story for how good Garnett played.
It's actually the Celtics versus Sixers at the last game of Game 7 of the 2012 NBA Eastern Conference semifinals, which took place on May 26, 2012. Now, the bet that Howard made at the end of the film is Celtics to win that night's opening tip-off at the beginning of the game, Garnett to have at least a combined 26 points and rebounds, and the Celtics to win. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is a parlay bet, meaning that he has to win every single part of the bet in order to win. And because he bet $165,000 on this parlay bet, it would have paid out over $1.2 million, which Julia gets at the end of the film. Even though Howard won and finally hit big, he gets shot in the face right at the end of the movie, which is shocking. The first time I saw this when we were watching it in theaters, it blew my mind.
Yeah, it was really disturbing. And then also when Arnold got shot, because I think Phil, the actor, Keith William Richards, did a fantastic job. Phil, he feels like he's like a real fucking gangster. You know what I mean? Like he's like an Irish street guy. And the actor, I'm sure that's what it's like, how he really talks in his real personality. He seems like a guy you don't want to mess with. And he hints at his ability to kill someone a couple of times in the film. And most other people, you hear them say these things, and you're like, oh, they're just talking shit. But with him, there's something behind his eyes that you feel like he really means it.
Like that look he's constantly giving Howard when they're stuck inside the foyer of the locker room.
He was gonna do that once he got out. I think he had his mindset on it immediately. Like, I'm gonna kill this guy once he lets me out. And then, but what's even shocking is these two guys, they work for Arno, and then Phil is just he's just a real bad dude. Like on a different level from anyone else we've seen in the film, that he just easily kills Howard, and then he, without even thinking, he kills the guy he works for, and then it turns into a robbery of the jewelry store. Phil ended up becoming just like a terrible human being, and like a villain at the end of the film that really worked. And also, it's like, because you gotta think about it, like the criminal underworld and the people that Howard sets off, and the people that Howard pisses off. You're gonna come across a wild card every once in a while in that kind of place, in that kind of world, in that kind of community. And the wild cards are the people you want to look out for. Like, for example, like there are people out there where if you set them off, they won't hesitate to kill you. They're out there. They exist, and Phil is one of them. And I think it was a brilliant character to put in the movie.
Yeah, especially because Howard's gonna face up to the consequences of his actions at some point. He hasn't hit the full ramifications of that. His marriage is falling apart. That's a consequence of his actions. His kids don't connect with him anymore. One of his kids finds out that he's been cheating on his mother when he goes to the apartment, and he doesn't let him inside of it. And the guy tells him about that hot girl that's living in the apartment. He's destroyed his relationship with Gooey because he had him put $180,000 on the Opal, which he told him this would happen. I told you this would happen. He's ruined his relationship, obviously, with his brother-in-law by taking so many loans out with him, but as well as the people in his community, because he takes so many loans out all over the place. But this is the biggest consequence of his actions, which you could argue is probably inevitable in his life. And even if he didn't get shot here, even if he got that $1.2 million, his life would have ended up in this way eventually. He would have spent all that money within a year. He would be right where his back is. He would have used all that money, probably just wasted it on vacations with Julia, and then put it all into gambling and lose it all and get probably even deeper in a hole.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier that it was inevitable that his life would end like this no matter what, because that's just who the character is. He probably would have won big here and then would have bet it all on something else to make, I can win $10 million. It's never enough for a person like this. Whatever they win, whatever they get, they're never satisfied. They always need the next big fix, and they have an insatiable appetite for winning and for success, and that's why it was inevitable for Howard to eventually die in some capacity like this.
I love the music to both of these films, too. It's just highly experimental, very emotional and energetic. Lots of cool sounds. We're hearing, like, experimental sounds, like electronic sounds. You're hearing electric guitar solos and, like, piano, keyboard, electronics, guitar solos. Just they're all over the place with the.
But then you hear flute.
It's
and
really interesting.
Woodwinds.
Yeah, and chorus even. And so it was done by One Tricks Point Never, that's their stage name, and it's actually Daniel Lopatin. He did both Good Time and Uncut Gems. Lopatin had previously contributed scoring work on Sofia Coppola's The Bling Ring in collaboration with Brian Reitzel and Ariel Kleiman's 2015 film Partisan. He became interested in working with the Safdie brothers when they approached him as the composer and musician for these films, because they're a big fan of his track called Behind the Bank, and they sent him a mood board and he got really interested in it. Josh Safdie, who works closely with Lopatin and specifically on the score for Uncut Gems, which, according to Safdie, began with a Frankenstein score using library and New Age music before Lopatin began sketching out compositions. Safdie described the soundtrack as a medicinal New Age soul of a film, in contrast to the pulse of their previous collaboration on Good Time. It's more ethereal, more orchestral, and it's a little goofier. A major difference between these films, for me, is Uncut Gems feels kind of magical or mystical. It's got that quality, that great opening with this mine in South Africa or Ethiopia. Well, they filmed in South Africa, but in Ethiopia, according to the movie. And they get that opal, and the film then travels through the opal, and then we're in this galaxy, this universe inside the opal, and then we're inside of Howard's colon. It's really interesting, weird way to start a movie. But then that film ends going into Howard's face and through the opal again, and then to the universe and the cosmos.
Well, so the ending is not, you don't go back into the opal. They go into the cellular level. And then
it looks similar to the opal.
That was the whole point. Where it's just
the same thing.
We're made up of minerals. We're made up of molecules, and it's not
cosmic dust.
And it's not much different from the opal. And then it ends up being cosmic dust. That's the whole point. So the molecular structure of a mineral, of a stone, is not much different from the molecular structure of a human being.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Also, I think it's in matter in general, but it's probably just a really great metaphor and comparison of the opal to a human life. Mm-hmm. Are they worth the same thing? Are they both that valuable and rare? Is it that precious? Are both so precious that one's, hundreds of thousands of years old and worth so much money, and one is just, it seems, there's 7 billion people on the planet Earth. Are human lives as important or rare as this opal? Probably. Probability of life.
Well, they do a great supercut of the opal cut together with just literally a supercut of frames of Kevin Garnett, various frames of Kevin Garnett because he wants to buy it, and then cut with the miners and people suffering to mine in different African countries. Really great little supercut, about 30 seconds long. No, not even 10 seconds long, where you can see just this spray of images relating to the idea of minerals. And I mean, where do minerals start? They're mined generally, these precious minerals are all mined by hand by unfortunate people who live highly sufferable lives with in poverty, and then these minerals are sold for thousands and even millions of dollars in the Western world. So I thought it was a great cut they did in that. And there's more creativity in the filmmaking of this than there is in Good Time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, let's talk about the supporting cast. So Good Time, excuse me, Jennifer Jason Leigh, obviously, as Corey Ellman, who is Connie's, supposed girlfriend, but really just uses her for money whenever he needs it. Buddy Duress, who we talked about as well as Ray. Talia Webster, she plays Crystal. It is an unorthodox and uncomfortable situation when, Connie is... intimately involved with this teenager. Does she say her age? She says she's 16 in the movie. The actress Talia, she's actually was 19 when they filmed it. Mm-hmm. But still, it's just uncomfortable sometimes when you're watching that sequence.
But that's the character of Connie.
Yeah, exactly. They're not promoting it. That's how messed up Connie is.
He's a bad guy.
Yeah. Barkad Abdi, again, tremendous in this film as the security guard at the amusement park. And then, again, swapping out Eric Roberts with Real Bondsman and just having non-actors in a lot of roles. And then Uncut Gems, we have a larger cast and definitely some more talent added. In addition, we have Julia Fox as Julia De Fiore. Idina Menzel plays Dina Ratner. She's terrific as Howard's wife in this film. Lakeith Stanfield is incredible in this film as Damani. And I think this one, after I saw him in Get Out and we saw him in this, I was just like, this guy is tremendous.
Sorry to bother you, too.
Yeah, he's great, and that came out, I think, 2017 as well. Keith William Richards, which we brought up as well. Tommy Kominick. And then some other cast members. We have Paloma.
Well, The Weeknd's in it.
Yeah, The Weeknd, yeah.
Yeah, and I like how they dated the film.
Exactly.
So it opens with 2012 New York City, the title, during the colonoscopy. But then also they date it with, it's a record release album party for The Weeknd with, his second album. If I remember that song, I think it's on his second album that he sings. And you see his old hairstyle, and he performs in that club. I love that because it makes it feel like, it's not just a title card we saw. We're seeing a famous artist while they were coming up rising into fame, still kind of underground at that time of his career. And to see a record release party for him, it makes you really feel like, oh, this is 2012.
It's really The Weeknd playing The Weeknd, and then we also have Kevin Garnett playing Kevin Garnett in
when he was on the
2012,
Celtics.
when this was all happening. They needed to find an active player at the time and year that this movie was set in, so that was a great option. Originally, they wanted Amari Stoudemire because he was active at the time as well, but I think it just added so much more depth to have the Celtics.
KG did great.
He's tremendous.
He did a very good job. I was shocked.
Really terrific. But those two things in dating the movie, what's it add? Authenticity.
We're going to have to make a shirt out of this.
Too. Tilda Swinton actually has a cameo in this movie.
What?
She plays the auction manager. She's on the phone with Howard when he shows up and he gets in the...
That's Tilda Swinton?
That's Tilda Swinton's voice.
Oh, my God.
Pretty great. Judd Hirsch, he plays Gooey in this movie. He was just in The Fablemans. He's an Oscar-nominated
He's great.
actor
Yeah,
as well.
I love him. Yeah.
He's terrific in that movie.
He was in Independence Day. Speaking of Independence Day.
Oh, yeah.
He plays Jeff Goldblum's dad.
He's just always looked really old.
Yeah, he looked old in that, yeah.
Doc Rivers, the Celtics head coach, actually has a voice.
Was that his
cameo
real
as well.
voice? I wasn't sure if they got an actor that sounded like him, because in the locker room, they don't show him, but KG's holding the opal and like rubbing it, but you hear Doc's voice in the background. I'm like, this sounds too good for it to be like an actual recording of Doc Rivers.
So it's Doc Rivers. He did the recording for the movie, and he based the speech that he gave off a real speech he gave to the Clippers when he was coaching them more recently.
Love that.
So the casts, I think, are just really terrific because great supporting cast. Also, John Amos, he plays neighbor the neighbor in 3F. He's obviously from Good Times, Die Hard 2, Coming to America. And I think Howard makes a reference to him saying that he's a legend when they knock on his door for his son to use the bathroom. He's like, no, hell no. So that's a great cameo for him as well.
I would say the best supporting actor of both films has got to be Benny Safdie. He really did a remarkable job. And like I said, the film opens with him and the film ends with him. It's a bookend of Nick, of him in the interview with the psychiatrist, and then him entering the program with the other people who are being assisted and helped and cared for. He's finally entered the program that he was probably interviewing for in the first scene of the film. So the movie's bookended by Nick, whereas Uncut Gems is bookended by the molecular structures of the gem and then the human body.
Nick's a really tragic character. You know, we immediately learn who Nick is and get the great introduction from Connie as well, and we know their relationship, and obviously they're brothers, but we get great characterizations because Nick is a mentally handicapped person, and he's, you know, you can tell how tough it must be for him to go through this interview and these questions, and you know he's not giving great answers in his perspective, and Safdie sheds a tragic tear in the first minute of the movie.
Yeah,
it's so hard to watch, and you feel nothing but empathy for this poor guy Nick. And then his brother comes into the picture, takes him out of there. How would you feel if I made you cry right now? Like, tear that shit up, and so then gets him arrested. And Nick is just really a victim to his brothers doing this entire film. Gets arrested, gets beat up in prison. He's not meant to be in a prison because he doesn't really know how to interact with other people because he needs to be assisted in his day-to-day life. He's not meant to be somewhere like that.
That's actually a great point because Connie treats him as though he doesn't need help. And Connie treats him as though, I can take care of him. He's fine. He can do whatever. But Nick, he needs assistance and he needs help in life. He can't live a normal life. He can't lead a normal life. And so he needs to enter a program like this. But Connie, I think he has great amount of stubbornness and selfishness to think that he can solve Nick's problems, which he clearly is incapable of because he can't even solve his own problems and because he is a criminal. So Connie is just so reckless, so irresponsible. He has absolute tunnel vision. I think the greatest instance of tunnel vision is when they're running from the cops and he basically just keeps sprinting. He yells for Nick to catch up, but like Nick lost him minutes ago. Like there's no way Nick's going to catch up to him. And so Connie, in a way, I think kind of back of his head kind of abandons Nick in a way.
He's very stubborn.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks he can be just like him, but Nick needs help. I mean, that's clearly shown when he runs through the glass door. It's clearly shown in the prison when he doesn't really understand the social cues that are happening and how if he keeps pressing people in this jail, he's going to get his ass kicked, which he does. He gets sent to the emergency room. That's where Nick thinks he's in custody at that hospital and tries to break him out and ends up being Ray. But
what a great twist.
I know, but Nick.
Yeah.
But what I love about this film is we don't see what happened to Nick. We just know he went to a hospital after he gets beat up in prison. And then we don't see him till the end of the film, really, where he's with his grandmother and he's back with the psychiatrist. And he's finally entering this program where he can actually get help and actually grow as a person and try to socialize and try to move on with his life without Connie holding him back.
Yeah.
Where Connie probably thinks that Nick is holding him back. Connie's really holding Nick back from the kind of person that he really can be. And it's such a powerful ending to the film where he's in this class and you can tell Nick doesn't really want to be here immediately, but then he finally accepts who he is and accepts where he's meant to be and how he really needs to be in this program with these people. And he starts to cross the paths and starts to be a part of the game.
Do the activity, yeah.
And the credits are rolling while this is happening. It's really powerful. It's really emotional. And Safdie is terrific.
And this is where their documentary background really works, because that final shot, it almost feels like it's just being filmed by a documentary crew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Like the shots from outside the door.
And Benny even doesn't even feel like he's an actor in that moment. You know what I mean? But what also really works in how you say that we don't see Nick again until after Connie's arrest and ended up. The reason is that both the films, for the most part, are real-time stories. Good Time more so, where the movie basically takes place over the course of several hours. Uncut Gems is kind of like that, but in chunks. Like you get one 6-hour chunk, then you get like another 6-hour chunk. So Good Time essentially more so is a real-time film. Uncut Gems is a real-time film in a couple of increments. But with both films, they take place over a very short amount of time, at the most a couple of days. And that's a strength to the pacing and the rhythm that they create with their story, and also the stakes, then the time. So both films also have the time conflict where for Connie, he needs to find his brother, and then he needs to figure out how to get out of the being pursued by the police and getting his brother back and try and get out of town.
While also trying to score.
He needs money. And then he only has a short amount of time to be able to find this money somehow. And then for Howard, he only has a short amount of time to get the money he needs, or else he's dead. And the time factor is a really great thematic element to add a lot of pressure onto your character, to add a lot of stakes into the story, and to really propel conflict and make it build, because the closer you get to the end of that time limit, the more suspense, the more conflict, and the more thrills and anxiety the audience feels along with the characters of the film.
I really love the one-night quality, one day, 24-hour period quality to Good Time, where Uncut's pretty close to that. It seems like a couple days, maybe 2 days, 3 days. But the one-day timeline of Good Time really sells the movie so well, and they really wrote it terrific.
You feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it.
You got any more to talk about? I got some cool fun facts.
Well, I really love the Safdie's filmmaking style, because like I said, if you haven't seen any films from the Dardennes brothers, they made their careers based upon lower class characters, handheld cinematography. Sometimes they're criminals, sometimes they're just trying to get by. But their films are very minimalist in their approach to filmmaking. They also have a documentary background before they started making narrative films. They're some of my favorite filmmakers, and really were very inspiring to me when I was getting into film. But when I watched the Safdie brothers, I think for American filmmakers, they're the closest thing I've seen to the Dardennes brothers. And even the Dardennes, they generally avoid stars, but they cast Marion Cotillard in one of their films recently, The Kid with a Bike. The 2 Days, One Night, which is really brilliant. And also, what they do is they have characters wear red in some way on their clothing. And so all the characters in Dardennes movie will have either a red shirt or like a jacket with a red stripe or some kind of tone of red on the character's wardrobe. And then the Safdies, I haven't seen this in any interviews or anything, but I guarantee.
Can I guess what you're going to say?
That the Echo Unlimited shirt that's worn by Connie was inspired by the Dardennes always having their characters wear red.
It does wear a lot of red in that movie,
yeah,
you're right.
So the red, I guarantee you, I'd bet $1,000 that it's a reference and a homage to the Dardennes brothers, Connie wearing red in that movie.
That's a great point. Some cool facts I have on Good Time. How about we start with the meaning of the title Good Time is prison slang. It refers to reduction in a prisoner's sentence for good behavior. According to the Safdie brothers, the backstory is that Connie behaved well in prison, got released on his good time, and this is how he spends it. Buddy Duress's character Ray as well. People refer to it in jail as their good time, but when they leave, there are such strict rules and opportunities to get caught up. And they actually got this information from Buddy Duress, explained this to them, that what good time means.
That's funny.
He said to him, like, they wanted to work with him on a movie because I think they did a short with him. And they're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I can get out. I'm going to get out on good time soon. And he explained to him what good time means.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how about we discuss what happened to Robert Pattinson's hair in Good Time? So in the film, he starts off with dark hair with that goatee. Then halfway through the film, he bleaches his hair when he's at that apartment. And so they actually had to bleach it, then make it black again, then bleach again, make it black again a few times because
films are filmed out of order.
Yeah, and they actually had to reshoot some stuff. Like I said earlier, they had to reshoot the whole bondsman scene, so they probably had to do it for this. And during production of Good Time, Robert Pattinson's hair started to fall out in chunks due to the many times they had to bleach it. So after dyeing it to black first to make it more like Benny Safdie's brother, they peroxided it to be blonde and had to bleach it back and forth several times until they got all the sequences done. By the time the film had wrapped, they just shaved it all off because it was falling out. That's where they got that great mug shot of Pattinson's character Connie.
Oh, okay.
After they wrapped production, they shaved his head and took a photo of him.
That's how Eminem dyed his hair, right? With hydrogen peroxide?
I'm not sure.
He says that I think he says that in a rap lyric. Yeah.
Not sure. Let's see. Also, unsatisfied with the look of rental fake movie money and needing lots of it for the bank robbery scene, the Safdie brothers tasked their prop department with making their own fake cash. According to Josh Safdie, part of the production office became a counterfeiting mill. This one guy, he literally didn't say a word to anyone. He just sat there cutting money all day long. At one point, Robert Pattinson, who'd regularly went in and out of character and costume throughout the production, accidentally used the counterfeit bills to buy a pack of cigarettes.
We got some good fake prop money on Amazon.
Yeah, pretty solid.
It looked good.
It looks pretty good. How about some Uncut Gems fun facts?
Let's hear it.
So we got those cameos in earlier. Now, okay, so the film was originally supposed to take place in the present day, so 2019-ish, with NBA star Joel Embiid playing the role of the basketball player obsessed with the black opal. When filming for the movie was moved to the fall during the NBA season, using an active NBA player became out of the question because they are too damn busy. So then they set it to 2012.
I like the period piece setting.
Also, another great casting of a non-actor, Mike Francesa. He plays Gary, who Howard makes the bets with. He's the most successful and one of the most popular sports radio hosts in America.
Really?
New York City based, but he's excellent in this movie.
Yeah, he's great.
But yeah, he's been
he feels like a real bookie, you know?
Yeah, he does. The word fuck is used 560 times, the fourth highest in film history after Swearing at the Movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, and
Goodfellas
Fuck the documentary. Based on the film's running time of 135 minutes, the word appears an average of 4.15 times per minute in Uncut Gems.
It's a lot.
Two final bits. So Adam Sandler's base salary for acting in a movie is usually $20 million. The film's entire budget was $19 million. And finally, Jonah Hill was originally considered for the role of Howard Ratner, and he even wanted to work with the Safdie brothers for a long time, but he left the film due to his young age not being able to youth the character down. Instead, he was replaced by Adam Sandler, who at first turned down the role twice and finally accepted it. How about actually?
I think Jonah Hill could have pulled it off.
Yeah, probably.
I think
he seems a little too young, though.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
To have a family. Yeah.
I actually have.
Now he could do it.
I have a question about the gem. Do you think the opal, do you think it has power? Do you think its power is giving its possessor the ability to win? What do you think? Do you think the opal has power? Because both KG and Howard win.
No, it's just it's like Michael's drink in Space Jam. It gives you supreme confidence.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess.
Because it gives KG the confidence to play well.
Mike's secret sauce?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, whatever it is. I can't remember what he calls it. Like Mike's secret drink.
Secret stuff?
Yeah, secret stuff. Yeah. I think it's the same thing. It's just placebo effect.
I don't know. I think there's some magic.
Well, yeah, if you
think
so.
There's some magic,
Yeah.
man. I like that Opal. But anyways, that's all I got for fun facts for Good Time and Uncut Gems.
I love both these films, and they just announced that they are in pre-production on their next film, and Adam Sandler will be starring again. And I saw an interview with someone asked him what the character was like, and Adam Sandler said he has the look for the character is not very flattering for him. he said, I don't look good. I'll tell you that. So I'm really curious now.
All right, thanks for tuning in to our episode on Good Time and Uncut Gems. Be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Get tickets to the live show, digital experience tickets broadcast around the world from moment.co/Raiders of the Lost, or get live in-person tickets from dynastytypewriter.com. Again, these links will be in the bios of our Instagram, social media accounts, as well as the episodes of the show. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost Podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons: Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, Anthony DeMeo, Becca Keene, Cody Moen, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Cam, and Chandler Johnson. Thank you so much for supporting our show. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.